All right, everyone, welcome back. Another episode of Measurement Talks. We're hitting it on the regular these days. And last week, one of our friends, Dr. John Snow from the Snow Agency, he has been on a tear with the insights on X and in his newsletter recently. But he did this analysis to try to see if he could find a correlation that helped him understand the various meta issues that they've been seeing and that many people have been seeing, which his version, I'll try to like very high level it. And then Brian, I would love for you to dig into the numbers because I know you did your own analysis, but the high level is that he found a correlation which led him to believe that there was a drop in the number of sales that are being accepted by Facebook when they were sending the events back to Facebook, which was leading to the worst performance on Meta. So that's like the high level takeaway that he found in his study. But Brian, what did you find? What was your sort of takeaway from the numbers that he shared?
Yeah. So at first glance, absolutely agree. And I was like, you know what? Like performance has been volatile on Meta. I haven't been able to reconcile where that volatility is coming from or like what's creating it. I did take a deeper dive and I am somewhat still in the process, but something that is alarming for me, at least as I've done my analysis, is that I'm seeing the opposite. So I use a third party pixel, and it's deterministic. And when we say deterministic, we're really calling this a way of measurement where it it can very clearly identify that this action took place, resulting in this immediate action following it. And it's not like Meta's attribution, which is modeled, right? Because of Aggregate Events Manager and because of iOS 14, Meta can't pass back actual revenue numbers and they can't pass back conversions. That's why when you see your ROAS or you see your purchase values on Meta, you have that little two annotation and you hover over it and it'll tell you, hey, we're modeling this data. Um, so I was looking at the two, and I was like, okay, we have this deterministic one that is not modeled, and we have this other in-platform attribution that is modeled. And Meta for me, month over month, increased significantly. My Meta ROAS went. I'm not going to give numbers here, but let me just do a quick math. It increased 12% month over month. Now, when I look at my deterministic modeling and or my deterministic attribution, I look at first click, I look at last click, I look at like platform touch linear, it's flat. So month over month, my third party analytics tool is saying, hey, you've been flat. Meta performed about the same. My bottom line agrees as well.
Wait, can I tell you a quick joke that I heard? So I hosted this exec dinner in San Francisco. You should come sometime. I hosted this exec dinner in San Francisco. It was all like founders or CMOs at brands. And this woman who is the CMO of a beauty company, she said, "You know what's funny is all of my tools tell me that my revenue is going up, except my actual business." The room just roared. It was so good. Anyway, sorry. Keep going. So
I knew
so
I knew where you were going with that. As soon as you said all of my tools, I was like, "Yep, I been there." Yeah, if only, if only. But yeah, Meta ROAS is saying that it increased. So I'm not seeing attribution challenges. I actually saw over-reporting of attribution on Meta this month, and so I'm now even more puzzled, right? Like
so
because
so I have a theory because you said something very critical. You said I use a third party. Do you use a third party tool to send the events back as well
no,
to Meta?
I mean, we use Elevar, but these are completely separate tools. But I use Elevar for server-side tracking, and I pass back my events, my web and server events through Elevar. Um, but my attribution tool is completely separate from that.
Okay, got it.
Where were you going with
Got it.
this?
So okay. So by the way, I don't know what Elevar does or doesn't do behind the scenes. Okay,
It's up
so I'm
to
not
you.
making a comment. yeah, I'm just saying I'm not making a comment on Elevar's particular practices when I say what I'm about to say. But I think that there's like two different ways that you can send events back to Facebook. One is you use a third-party tool like Elevar or Blotout, or there's a bunch of these tools, um, or you just use the native CAPI integration, basically, which is like what would happen if you just like did the direct download from Facebook onto your Shopify, right? And so I think that I wonder if we asked John whether he was using a third-party tool or the native, if that will account for the difference. And I'll tell you why I think this might be part of the reason. I think that it is more likely that the native, and again, this is a hypothesis, so I have no idea, but I think it is more likely that the native tooling will drop more data than a third-party tool for a variety of reasons, including that the native tool is probably going to take the most um, conservative stance on what is tracking, because Facebook doesn't want to get banned out of the App Store. So, like, the most conservative stance when somebody says do not track would mean that they don't accept the event data back and would concur with what John is seeing. Whereas, like, a less kind of like stringent view is like, hey, this is now first party data. I now have a first party audience that I am sending to Facebook. And so it's not actually tracking on the particular event. It's just saying these people are purchasing, right? And so it's like, depending on what stance you take, I can actually see different tools sending different amounts of data back to the platform.
Yeah, I agree with you absolutely, especially with limited data use that's active in California. Depending on how your settings are configured, and if you over-index on in California more so or less than other brands, those are definitely all parameters. Um, one question that, not a question but a statement, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Uh, Cody Plofker at Jones Road, made a statement of, well, look, it's not an attribution issue only, because I think from Jon Snow's post there was this sort of takeaway of, oh, it's only an attribution thing, it's only a reporting issue. We have nothing to worry about. Just ignore the numbers and keep trucking forward. But Cody said, well, look, it's not an attribution issue, because if Meta believes that it's getting less conversions, that will ultimately create a negative feedback loop where you could see decrease in efficiency over time. What are your thoughts on that? Do you have a perspective?
So I think it depends on if it's Meta's native tool that is saying no to those events or if it's a third party tool. So it's like let's just say it's Meta's policy opinion that has started to like crack down. And so this was like, by the way, at the end of that thread, John then proposed, hey, there's two possibilities here potentially. Like, he's not making a statement of belief, by the way. He's like doing it in the right way. He's saying like, hey, my best guess is like, maybe this is an internal test where they're like trying to figure out what happens as like third party cookie goes away and you have even less signal that you can send back, or it is just a bug, right? And he's like, I'm not sure. And then I replied to that one because I thought it was like, first of all, I think it's good of him to just like propose, hey, here are things that I'm guessing. And so I was like, hey, what if it's like neither of those things? And it's even worse. It's like Facebook has actually decided that it's going to take a stricter policy stance on what events it's going to receive back, assuming it knows that it comes from somebody who they sent to your website. And they're saying like, hey, we cannot use this data. If they are doing that, their modeling will still continuously get better. So like, the one good thing about Meta is that they are extremely committed to like, even if Apple says like, hey, you cannot receive all of this raw data, they're going to do as best of a job as they can to model as effectively as they can. And so the degradation to targeting ideally is like dampened because they do a good job of that, right? And they continuously do like a very good job on modeling as they need to reduce the amount of signal coming in. And so like, of course Cody is right? Like, of course with less data your ability to model becomes worse. I just would add the nuance that I think that I wouldn't stress, but okay, I would worry, but I wouldn't worry a huge amount, because I think Facebook is going to do their absolute best to like help recover from that in their targeting.
Yeah, that's fair. The thing that, yeah, and I hope that this discussion, this analysis, and that people continue to do their own analysis as well, and that we discuss this and bring this conversation top of mind where as many places as possible. But one of the things that concerns me is that just Meta's lack of communication on this. If they did something internally, and if they wanted to run this experiment, and they're like, well, what happens if we get less visibility into conversion tracking and signal? Uh, why not communicate that? I think that the tool, the company did an exceptional job with the rollout of iOS 14. Um, there was plenty of notice heads up. There was um, tons of information, how to navigate, how to interpret, how to handle this. Even with LDU, limited data usage rollout, and CCPA, the company did an exceptional job communicating. Those, that was before iOS 14, was back in 2019, I believe. But I think what's creating a lot of speculation and a lot of conflict right now and uncertainty is that Meta's been a little bit in the dark about it, hasn't really communicated any of these changes, any of these tests, and we're all sort of speculating and trying to tie all the pieces together. So you've got that, and it could be because of maybe some of the delivery bugs, and maybe there is a problem and they don't have a solution yet, or any sort of like way of communicating it. So they're sort of just buying their time and waiting until they have internal communication figured out before they go externally. So maybe that's, again, I'm speculating again, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the tough thing is like, I mean, they're just in like, they're between a rock and a hard place. It's like too transparent. And as a public company, then all of a sudden you have all these stock analysts like barking down your throat about like, hey, if this is like a systemic issue, then how's it going to affect your stock? And, how's it going to affect company? And you're just like, oh my God. Like, I was just trying to communicate to my customers that, here's something to think about. And then on the other hand, it's like, maybe they aren't doing it because they just don't need to. It's like, where else are you going to go? Like, let's just, I mean, for all of the talk about like people being upset with Meta, where else are they going to go?
Where are you going to go?
So I'm like, maybe they're just like, we're better off saying nothing, right? Like maybe that is actually like, it is strategic silence. Like, that wouldn't shock me. That would be like a very rational decision.
Yeah. Well, it's a great segue into a next topic. Well, maybe the topic after the next one.
New channels. No, dude, let's do it. Yeah, let's hit it.
Yeah, let's talk about new channels. Let's talk about where are you?
Where else? Where are you gonna go?
Man. Well, okay. So
can I share? I want to share a quick story first, okay, and then I want to hear what you're doing. But I've been spending more time with a bunch of like non-Meta, non-TikTok channels because they've been asking for our advice on how to get into e-com. And so they're like, they want to do like tech partnerships and things like that. I'll talk about it to you off recording also, but like think like mobile ad networks or like the Snaps and Pinterests of the world and things like that, because all of them are like, hey, in order for us to crack e-com, we need to get better at direct response, because that's the only way that e-com merchants of like serious spend scale, but not the Fortune 500, are going to spend with us.
It's the fastest. It's the fastest way to unblock that capital. And then usually the enterprise brands follow, but they're just so slow to
Totally.
They're so slow to test. So
Exactly.
speed,
Exactly.
you want e-com and you want profitable performance marketing.
Yeah, exactly. And what's amazing is like how many channels are interested in tapping into this ecom market. So I just want to like kick us off with like a note of optimism that actually I am like directly aware of a large number of networks who are seeking to invest into enabling ecom to be able to profitably spend on them. But I guess like yeah, who are you guys considering? Like when you look at your testing categories, like who are you thinking about testing?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I have like a massive criteria. My criteria is really built around what is the effort to stand this setup, creative needs, like, TV ad versus like an Outbrain ad, vastly different lift
Totally.
to stand it up. Um, the
What is
content,
Outbrain for people who don't know?
yeah, Outbrain is display programmatic native ads. Actually, there's like I just gave like three little categories within like the larger programmatic category. It's native advertising. So when your mom or grandparents are shopping online and they're searching for products on Bing, and they click on the websites and the search results that pop up through Bing, all of those articles that you see at the bottom of a
Exactly. Yeah.
news website, those are those native ads where it basically gets its name for advertising that's meant to look like it's part of like website articles. It's like, and it's mostly clickbait headline stuff like doctors couldn't believe her results. Click here to find more, and you're like, what? So you click on it, and it's like a sales advertorial for some sort of weight loss or Ozempic or something. Um, but yeah, my criteria is really built around the lift to set it up and deploy it, and confidence, which for me, confidence is a factor of CPMs and case studies and historical, knowledge or information that the company can provide me. And that's kind of my criteria. So internally, I have this spreadsheet where I get so much inbound. Some of the things from the inbound make their way into this list, and I basically just keep this running document where I classify and I tag all these efforts based on like lift and confidence. And as I, find opportunities where like, wow, we had an exceptional month, or oh, I know that April is going to be a killer month for us, I might feel a little bit more risky and might be willing to, deploy 30 to 50, maybe more, $1,000 worth of capital to this new
By the way,
platform.
this is not an okay for you guys to go and hit up Brian in April and say like, hey, are you feeling frisky and want to spend 50K on us? It's like this is not an
That
invitation.
is not what that is. Absolutely. There's a line, there's a queue. So you hit me up now. Either you're not getting on the list and I'm blocking you, or you're getting on the list and you're like, number 20 on the list. So you gotta wait your turn. But but basically, I'm always looking for that like new platform where we can arbitrage attention. So I think as a marketer, unfortunately, platforms like Meta, algorithmic auctions have made us a little bit lazy, in that we expect to deploy creative, deploy media, let the algorithm do its thing, and like bring sales. I think that as marketers, we're better than that, and we can look at the distribution of the media. Ask ourselves questions of like, is my audience on this medium, and what is the cost for the attention of this audience? And based on those factors, you can generally get a sense of how well it could work or it may not work. So, for us, let's say that like my audience is 30 to 45 and they love um, they love sports, they're crossfitters, they're runners. I can use that information to then think about, well, okay, if I'm going to go do a new ad, or I'm going to go deploy a new platform, I need to be where they are. And that could be Reddit, for example. We were talking about Reddit before we started recording. It could absolutely be Reddit, but it probably wouldn't be Reddit broad targeting, it would be Reddit interest. I think with any new channel like this, there's only one, maybe two platforms in the world that have broad targeting capabilities where their algorithm is so good that it can really like get you in front of the consumer on its own. Everything else you have to treat like traditional marketing. You have to go back to who is my audience, who is my strategic, who do I want to get in front of strategically here? What's it going to cost me to
Totally.
do that? And guide the targeting. And so some of the things,
Or at least guide the targeting because of this view on CPM, right? So like I think that the important but strategic nuance here is like having a point of view on like if I share my message 10 times with this kind of audience, the probability that they will convert is good enough that it is worth it for me. And like that is the sort of like high level, like true high level marketing strategy that is being used to like do this. Whereas like Meta, you're not thinking of any of that. You're like Meta, it's like, okay, it's like here's my ROAS and here's like the number of conversions. So you're not thinking at all about like, oh, this kind of audience requires 10 touches. This kind of audience requires 15 touches. Yeah. So
when I was, and it's truly attention arbitrage. It's CPM arbitrage. What is the lowest possible CPM that you can get? I think that's the single most important thing, and we've forgotten about that as media buyers because of how good Meta has treated us. But if you can arbitrage CPMs, you can make any platform work because it's the inherent value of that attention. I'll give you an example. I was running podcasts with iHeartMedia,
oh,
and
nice.
we were spending like a $10 to $12 CPM, and like the effective cost per session based on analytics and post purchase and effective cost per acquisition based on post purchase, the math just didn't pan out. Like the CPM at the rate at which people were listening and then going to the website, that math didn't come back into a cost per session that converted at X rate that then led to this cost per acquisition. So what's the only thing that we could do? Well, you could update the
Negotiate
creative.
CPMs.
Yes. Well, yes, exactly. I mean, we could update the creative, but it's already out in the market. You can't just like take those ads back and like pause. They're running. They're already running. So I used that data. I went back to iHeart and I was like, look, here's the math. The math is not math, and there's only one lever here, and the value at which I'm paying for this audience, I'm paying too much. The value should be this much because at this price, the math makes sense for me, and it's the true value at which your audience that I'm paying for. This is the rate at which they're taking action, at the rate at which they're converting. So a little bit of back and forth. They brought the rate down to like $8. And what do you know? Cost per acquisition makes sense. ROAS starts making sense. Cost per session starts, everything just lines up nicely because the inherent value at which people were taking action with all other variables fixed, that doesn't change. So you bring down the CPM, you get in front of more impressions, and now you just have more at bats for people to go to the website and converting. And so great. I think it's a great example and a constant reminder that I have that at the end of the day, when we go to these auctions and we go like I'm looking at live intent, I'm going to do some TV stuff. I'm really negotiating for a CPM that is favorable or makes sense for the business. And the greater alpha I have in the CPM for the true value of the audience versus what I'm paying, if I paid the least possible and the alpha is right here, like that's an incredible amount of margin, and like I could probably have ROAS that's better than Meta. This is where Meta is so good at what it does. That it does all this in real time, right? Um,
Yeah. And Meta's a price maximizing machine.
of
It's
course,
like, it's just trying to find the efficient frontier. And it's like for itself, right?
for itself.
Which like nobody else can do. And so it's like, yeah, as a marketer, now the tax of doing all of that is high, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you have to be at a certain scale, you have to be at a certain sophistication. Like if you're considered like, let's just use live intent. So it sounds like you're considering live intent, which is
Yes.
for those who don't know, that's literally like display ads in emails. So like Live Intent acts as like
It's
a
like
ad network across a,
yeah, it's like those native ads that I was talking about earlier in
yeah.
email. So you get an email, the content's here, and then you might get something relevant that's like, oh, learn more about how this person did this relative, and it's sort of tying in the content of the email. But people click on that, they go to the website, and um, it's yeah, we're looking to test that. And the CPMS I've been asking around, and I had a great Scott Kramer did an incredible presentation. Scott Kramer, he oversees AS Beauty, did an incredible presentation at Dita Ski, and he's testing Live Intent. And what did it for me is when he showed me the CPMS that he's paying, I was just like, oh my gosh, yeah, I can make that work. I can't give a number out of respect for
No,
Scott,
no, 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 dude. Yeah, of
but
course.
it was,
Yeah, yeah,
let's
yeah.
say it was less than $3, a $3 CPM, and I pay like $25 CPMS on Meta. And so yeah, so we're testing. I'm setting up to test Live Intent. I'm going to be using, so I have my third party analytics tool, which is going to be helpful here to measure the percentage of visitation that is brand new, that has never visited the website before. I'll be measuring bounce rates. I'll be measuring time on session, pages per session, and comparing all those numbers from Live Intent to the platforms that I know are working. And then I'll be measuring first click ROAS. So,
Totally. You want to know what the beautiful thing is about Live Intent for those, if it's not obvious to people? What's the beautiful thing about Live Intent?
it's click based, so easy to measure. And that's going back to my criteria of like all of these tools and all these platforms. It's like, what are all the things that are click based that I have a good way of measuring very easily, that I can arbitrage those CPMs? Let me just run all of those, and it's probably going to require some hiring, and I'll need to staff and resource them accordingly. But if I can deploy five of these, I'm now, and as I'm taking up as much attention as possible. So if you're a user that goes and checks your emails, you get a nude ad on Live Intent. You then go on Reddit, you get a nude ad on Reddit. They're like, okay, I'm going to TikTok, you get a TikTok ad, a Facebook ad. We're everywhere. And I think that's sort of the magic that marketers kind of forget, is we're like so gung-ho on Reddit, on Facebook and Instagram, but people navigate the web outside of those apps. So it's all about taking up as much attention as possible, as much digital real estate as possible.
Yeah, dude, you want to know what I love about this strategy personally? Is that all of those channels are logged in channels. Email, people don't think about it as a logged in channel, but it's an email. So you're getting it sent to an email. And so 100% of those channels that you just described are all, I mean, okay, Reddit is a little bit convoluted, but yeah, they're all logged in channels. And so it's like, guess what? You're not going to lose anything when the cookie goes away either. And so it's like not only is it a sound strategy because it's all click based, but it's also all logged in. And so it's actually future proof for after this year. So you can test it now. You can use whatever cookies you need to in order to track, but you also don't have to worry about it once the cookie goes away, because you're just like, this email got sent to this person who I wasn't able to capture in another channel, and they purchased. Great. Live Intent worked to capture those kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah. That went over my head. You're absolutely right about that. Um, yeah. I mean, I encourage everyone to pick, I think everyone should test one new channel a quarter, maybe not Q4. So you can test two channels a year.
Maybe
And
not Q4. I love that. Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
over time, you'll find ways to diversify your spend. That's one of the presentations that Scott gave 2 weeks ago, is how to bring down their allocation of spend from just strictly Meta. And it's been an initiative of ours, right? Meta was at one point 80% of our spend, and we've been able to chip away at that and just bring it down so that we can eliminate dependency. But you have to be where your consumers are, and I think for a lot of people, Meta will continue to do so, to be that primary channel. But the more you can find other winning areas, and you can do the math to figure out what your right CPM is and arbitrage the attention of those audiences, then it allows you to build more resilience as a business, so you're not dependent on one channel.
Totally, totally. Okay, I want to quickly touch on one last topic, and we'll do this one as a quick tour, and then we'll do a deeper dive at another time. But you said we were talking a little bit about audiences when we were talking about the new channels. And I know for you guys, one of the things you do is you think about like male versus female separately as like audiences to go after. And so I get, and gender is like notoriously bad. I mean, other than Facebook, notoriously bad to get good data on. So it's like if you were to use an open web like segment on gender or sex, it's like it's worse than 50-50. It's worse than being random about it. And so how do you think about attracting particular audience types to your site, or testing for whether or not you're getting the audiences that you thought you were going to get? How do you do that on Meta? And then I have a few follow-ups from there.
Phrase that question one more time. How do I think about testing audiences?
Yeah, like how do you think about, like, you guys are trying to sell to men in addition to women, right? That's like one of the big things for Nude. And so like, how do you think about whether or not you're getting enough men to the website, and how to attract more men to the website or to those campaigns? Yeah, like as a particular example, and then I'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, so this audience discussion is a bit nuanced. We'll talk about incremental audiences first. So yeah, like for us, we were primarily only selling to women, and we were like, okay, how do we increase our TAM, total addressable market? I don't know. We start targeting men. How we measure that is Google Analytics. So we basically had um, early on, we were able to look at at purchase distribution between men and women, and it was more so used directionally. So, starting off, it was like 95% women that were measurable, 5% men that were measurable, and then you had this like bucket of people, like 30 or 20% of people that like Google didn't have any data for, which is fine. And then we looked at it directionally. So it's like, okay, do we see that 5% increase over time? That was just very clear cut. That's how we were able to measure. It's now gotten, about 30% plus men.
Got it.
Incremental. We're targeting men and women on Facebook ads broad. And my spend, Meta will find ads where the ROAS is significantly higher through men. The click-through rate and the cost per clicks are a lot better, and the ROAS is better. And it spends more on men, and you'll have some that are the complete opposite, and it'll go to women. So it's kind of a net like 50-50 at this point. And then
And are you using the delivery? Are you looking into the delivery to see where it's going?
absolutely.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you're using.
Yeah.
Got it. So you're looking at delivery in Meta, and then you're also looking at GA and seeing what GA is attributing in terms of like who are the people. And then how are you doing it for interests?
So that's where it gets like the second part of this question, where it's like there's a difference between incremental audience, where you're increasing your TAM, you're increasing your total addressable market, and you know that by communicating to these customers, you are inherently driving net new sales. And then there's also audiences that are a bit more persona focused, where like you could already be hitting these people, but now it's not about whether or not they're incremental. It's more about can you communicate them in a way that resonates better to increase the conversion rate, the relevance, and overall increase your efficiency. So one is increasing sort of a line of revenue, a revenue stream as a
Got it.
and the other one to me is I think about it as more of how do I improve
Conversion rate optimization.
my conversion rate optimization. So when we tested the format experience, men and women, that to me was about having more relevant message. And it's less about the audience, it's more about sort of the emotional and functional benefits of the product, and putting those things that matter to that group up front and center. So like, I gave CrossFit example earlier. Let's men, and maybe like well, let's talk about two personas. We'll talk about the CrossFitters, and we'll talk about like someone that's like more beauty maven. these groups we're probably already hitting, right? We're hitting some people here, men and women. We're hitting some people here, men and women as well. But the group that's CrossFitters, they're going to have things that they care about more, that communicate and that resonate with them a lot more, that can overall improve your efficiency. So if I'm doing it for my experience, I might think about, well, what are all the benefits that CrossFitters resonate with? Maybe for them, it's more about the hygiene aspect and how hair removal affects your hygiene and allows you to, be more hygienic. Maybe it's the
Chafing.
convenience. It's the exactly the convenience. Do spend less time shaving, spend more time working out and being at the gym. And also maybe some of these people are bodybuilders, so like they're truly having to shave all the time for their physique. So I'm thinking about what are the functional and the emotional benefits that I want front and center presented in the experience and the landing page. And what is the hierarchy of that messaging, the priority of the communication. You'll still run through probably all your features, but it's the order at which you present those features that matter. And then for the beauty mavens, it's probably something completely different. For them, it's about like more about the confidence and more about the fact that like you don't have to go get waxes at a salon anymore. So here I'm going to talk about waxing. Here I'm going to talk about convenience. Um, and so both of these features will still show up in the other experience, but it'll be lower on the list. And so with us, when we use for Matt, I'm thinking of like, okay, I'm not trying to like reach an audience that I haven't hit before. I'm already talking to these people, but I'm going to talk to them and figure out the stuff that they care about. So I can go to
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
my experience, and I can like move the order of operations. We can run it for a couple of days. We can see, okay, well, what happens if we move number 3 to number 1? Okay, that's what they care about. And now I can deploy a bunch of more personalized experiences at scale and increase the efficiency and the relevance. And it's less about tapping into a new audience. It's more about decreasing my CAC when I talk to persona A versus persona B versus persona C.
That's super interesting. Dude, this is so gold. Audiences as a TAM expansion versus conversion optimization. That is such a good framework. And like, I think it'll help a lot of people think about, yeah, think more strategically about the way that they think about the audiences and why they want to do specific campaigns for specific
Yeah, and and
audiences.
and
So
s- like go through that exercise too, where talk to your brand marketing manager or whoever outlines their personas. It could be you, and like create a spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet, across the columns, um, do the different personas: persona A, persona B, persona C, persona D, and then going down, fill out a value ladder. So like the value ladder is product attributes, product benefits. So product attributes, what are the features of the
yeah.
product? The benefits, what are functional benefits do these products do the features provide? Consumer benefits, what does the consumer get out of it? And then emotional benefits, ultimately, like what is the yearning and desire that the consumer gets out of this? And I think Apple, if you want examples of ads that do this exceptionally well, Apple does such a good job. So go watch their latest AirPods commercials or any of their AirPod commercials. They are calling out the product attributes, right? Why AirPods wireless? They sit in your ear. The consumer benefit for me is the fact that they are wireless. I can get up right now. I can go walk over there. I'm not tied to the computer. And then the emotional benefit and how they sort of communicate all of these features and these benefits, it's typically someone that's like dancing and having just this spontaneous sort of ability to like jump in some two kids playing jump rope or do a backflip in the air, and it's just like someone that's just walking through New York City with no strings attached, living this spontaneous life that they can jump in and out of situations. That's that emotional benefit of that feeling, right? So I think when you do that and you take this emotional, this sort of benefits ladder, and you build it across each persona, you can then start to figure out how do we communicate in a way that is relevant to these people that they ultimately care about. And then you can now take that and deploy it into your creative, into your landing pages, even your emails, and have that personalization and relevance to have better efficiency.
Dude, that was so good. We got to call it while we're on top. All right. More gold in the next one. We'll see you then.